I, Bass Reeves, do solemnly swear that I will faithfully execute all lawful precepts directed to the Marshal of the United States for the Western District of Arkansas, and without malice or partiality, perform the duties of Deputy Marshal. So help me God.
What if I told you that one of the greatest heroes of the American Wild West, a man who arrested over 3,000 criminals, killed 14 outlaws, and never got wounded once, was completely erased from history for decades? And what if the legendary Lone Ranger, that masked symbol of justice we all know, might actually be based on this forgotten black lawman who rode through the most dangerous territory in America with nothing but his wits, 2 Colt 45s, and an unshakable commitment to justice? This is the story of Bass Reeves. And Paramount Plus just gave us the first major Hollywood adaptation of his incredible life. Today, we're breaking down every single episode of Lawmen Bass Reeves, from his brutal escape from slavery to his legendary showdown with one of the most terrifying villains of the Old West. We're covering all 8 episodes, the major plot twists, the shocking character deaths, and the real history behind the legend. So buckle up, because this story is absolutely wild. Let's get into it. Lawmen Bass Reeves premiered on Paramount Plus on November 5th, 2023, and it's an 8-episode miniseries created by Chad Feehan and executive produced by Taylor Sheridan, the mastermind behind Yellowstone, 1883, and basically every successful Western show of the last decade. David Oyelowo, who you might recognize from Selma, doesn't just star as Bass Reeves. He also executive produced the series and spent years fighting to get this story told. And here's a fun fact about the series. When it was first announced, it was actually titled 1883, The Bass Reeves Story, and was supposed to be a spin-off of the Yellowstone universe. But the creators realized that Bass Reeves' story was way too important to be tied to a fictional universe, so they made it in its own standalone show. This is pure, unfiltered history, or at least as close as Hollywood gets to it. The show is heavily based on the first 2 books of the Bass Reeves trilogy by Sidney Thompson, and while it does take some creative liberties, especially in the second half with the Mr. Sundown storyline, the core of Bass Reeves' life is absolutely real. This man really did arrest over 3,000 criminals, he really did speak multiple Native American languages, and he really was one of the first black deputy U.S. Marshals west of the Mississippi River. His story is legendary, and it's about time we all know his name. Episodes 1 to 2, The Origin. The series opens during the final days of the American Civil War. Bass Reeves is still enslaved by Colonel George R. Reeves, a Confederate soldier who forces Bass to fight for the South. In one of the most intense opening scenes you'll see on television, Bass and George are in the middle of a battle when George makes the fatal mistake of belittling Bass one too many times. After years of abuse and dehumanization, something snaps. Bass beats George within an inch of his life and makes a run for it. He escapes into Indian Territory, the lawless expanse that would later become Oklahoma. This is no easy journey. Bass is being hunted, he's wounded, and he has no idea if he'll survive. But he makes it. And here's where the show does something brilliant. It introduces us to the Cherokee, Creek, and Seminole people who take Bass in. He learns their languages, their customs, their survival skills. This isn't just a man hiding from his past, this is a man becoming something new. Years pass. Slavery is abolished. Bass returns to Arkansas as a free man and settles down with his wife Jenny Reeves, played by Lauren E. Banks, and their children. He becomes a farmer in Van Buren, trying to live a quiet, peaceful life. But farming is brutal work, and Bass is barely scraping by. His family is struggling. They're free, but they're still fighting for survival every single day. Then opportunity knocks. Deputy U.S. Marshal Cheryl Lynn, played by Dennis Quaid, shows up at Bass's farm with a proposition. There's an indigenous outlaw named One Charlie who's been terrorizing the territory, and none of the white lawmen can find him because they don't know the land or speak the languages. But Bass knows Indian Territory like the back of his hand. He knows the languages. He knows the customs. Cheryl needs him, Bass agrees to help, and what follows is one of the most tense manhunts of the series. They track one Charlie through impossible terrain, and Bass proves he's not just a guide. He's a tracker, a strategist, and a hell of a shot. When they finally corner one Charlie, Bass tries to bring him in alive. But Cheryl? Cheryl has other plans. He burns one Charlie alive with Molotov cocktails, and Bass is forced to watch. This is Bass's first real lesson about what frontier justice actually means. Brutal, unforgiving, and often outside the bounds of the law. But Bass impressed the right people. Word of his skill reaches Judge Isaac Parker, the infamous hanging judge who runs the federal court in Fort Smith, Arkansas. Parker is legendary for his harsh sentences and his mission to bring law and order to the chaos of Indian Territory. And he wants Bass Reeves to be one of his deputies. Episode 3, The Badge. Episode 3 is where Bass officially becomes Deputy U.S. Marshal Bass Reeves. It's 1875, and this is a massive moment. Bass stands in Judge Parker's courtroom, played by the late, great Donald Sutherland in one of his final roles, and swears an oath to uphold the law. For a man who was born into slavery, who was property under the law for most of his life, this moment is profound. Bass is now the law. His first mission? Track down a young outlaw named Billy Crow, played by Forrest Goodluck. Billy's part of the Underwood Gang, a group of ruthless criminals terrorizing settlers. Billy's not a bad kid at heart. He got mixed up with the wrong people. Bass and his posse man Garrett Montgomery track him down, and Bass makes the arrest. But on their way back to Fort Smith, everything goes wrong. The Underwood Gang ambushes them in the middle of the night. Garrett is killed instantly. Bass is outnumbered 5-1. But here's where we see why Bass Reeves became a legend. In one of the most intense shootouts of the series, Bass single-handedly takes down the entire Underwood Gang, including their leader, Huff. 5 men, dead, and Bass doesn't get a scratch. When Bass delivers Billy Crow to Fort Smith, Judge Parker is impressed. But there's a problem. Billy knows where the Underwood Gang buried their stolen loot, thousands of dollars and valuable jewelry. Bass wants to know if Billy will tell him the location. Billy refuses, but there's respect between them. This isn't the last we'll see of Billy Crow. Episode 4, The Women's Boarding House. Episode 4 shifts focus. Bass needs a new posse man, and Judge Parker assigns him Billy Crow. Yes, the same Billy Crow he just arrested. In a surprising twist, Billy's sentence is commuted in exchange for helping Bass bring in more criminals. It's unconventional, but it works. Billy knows the territory, he knows the outlaws, and despite their rocky start, he and Bass develop a bond. Their first mission together takes them to a women's boarding house where a wanted man is hiding. But things get complicated when Bass realizes the women running the boarding house are protecting the outlaw because he's been kind to them, unlike most men in their lives. Bass has to navigate a delicate situation, uphold the law without destroying the fragile safety these women have built for themselves. Meanwhile, back home, Jenny reunites with someone from her past, Esme, played by Joaquina Calucango. Esme was enslaved alongside Jenny, and they share a deep bond. But Esme's return isn't just social. She's connected to Edwin Jones, a black activist who's trying to organize the black community to fight for their rights. Edwin wants Bass's help, but Bass is skeptical. He's a lawman, he works for the government, he upholds the law for everyone, not just black people. This creates tension, and it's a conflict that will simmer throughout the series. Episode 5, The Choice. Episode 5 is titled Part 5, and it's where Bass faces an impossible moral dilemma. Pandemonium erupts at Bywater's store when a violent confrontation breaks out. Bass is forced to choose between his oath as a lawman and his family. This is the episode where the weight of the badge really starts crushing him. At a carnival, Bass's eldest daughter, Sally, played by Demi Singleton, runs into trouble. She's harassed by white men, and when Bass finds out, he's furious. But what can he do? He's a black man in 1870s America. Even with a badge, even with the law on his side, He's still vulnerable. His family is still vulnerable. This episode also brings back an old nemesis. Remember Colonel George R. Reeves, the man who enslaved Bass? His wife Rachel shows up at the Reeves farm, played by Jessica Oyelowo, David Oyelowo's real-life wife. Rachel tells Jenny that new laws are being passed that could strip the Reeves family of their property and possibly even enslave their children again under different legal loopholes. Jenny slaps Rachel across the face and tells her to get off their land. It's a powerful moment, but it underscores a terrifying reality. Even freedom isn't truly free for black families in this era. Bass also confronts the legend of Mr. Sundown in this episode. Mr. Sundown is a mythical figure, a cannibalistic slave catcher who hunts black people even after slavery has been abolished. People whisper about him in fear, but nobody's sure if he's real or just a terrifying story. Bass doesn't believe in myths, but he's about to learn that some legends are based on horrifying truths. All right, before we dive into the intense second half of this series, do me a huge favor. If you're enjoying this breakdown and learning about Bass Reeves' incredible story, smash that like button. It genuinely helps this video reach more people, and this is a story that deserves to be told. And if you want more complete series breakdowns like this, where we go deep on every episode, every plot twist, and all the real history, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. We've got so many more shows to cover. Now, let's get into the absolutely wild second half of Lawmen Bass Reeves. Episode 6, The Myth Becomes Real. Episode 6 is where everything changes. Bass is tasked with transporting a prisoner named Jackson Cole, played by Tosin Morahunfala, to the Texas Rangers. Jackson killed a white man, specifically a former slave owner and political candidate named James Neblett. But here's the thing. Neblett deserved it. He was a monster. Jackson killed him to protect other people. But the law is the law, and Bass has to turn him over. The Texas Ranger who takes custody of Jackson. Esau Pierce, played by Barry Pepper, and Esau Pierce is not a good man. Bass recognizes him immediately. Years ago, when Bass was working one of his first cases, he befriended a young black man named Curtis. Curtis was murdered by Esau Pierce, who was a former Confederate soldier and slave catcher. Bass has carried the guilt of not protecting Curtis for years, and now he's face to face with the man who killed him. Bass hands Jackson over to Esau, and as he watches them ride away, he has a sickening realization. Esau Pierce is Mr. Sundown. The myth is real. Esau is the monster who's been hunting and killing black people, claiming he's delivering them to justice, but actually enslaving them, or worse. Later in the episode, Bass returns home drunk and devastated. A group of outlaws ambushes him, planning to kill him and collect the bounty on his head. Yes, there's now a bounty on Bass after he killed the outlaw Jim Webb, who had powerful connections. Bass is beaten within an inch of his life when Billy Crow shows up and saves him, killing one of the attackers. The bond between Bass and Billy deepens. They're not just lawman and posse man anymore, they're brothers. Episode 7, Chakotah. Episode 7 is Chaos. Bass and Billy head to Chakotah to continue their investigation into Esau Pierce and the Mr. Sundown legend. A massive firefight breaks out in the town when they encounter some of Esau's associates. The action is intense and people die. But more importantly, Bass and Jenny have a painful reunion. Jenny tracked Bass down because she's terrified. She knows her husband is hunting Mr. Sundown, and she knows this mission might get him killed. She begs him to come home, to choose his family over his badge. Bass is torn. He spent his entire career trying to be the perfect lawman, trying to prove that a black man can uphold justice with integrity and honor. But what's the point if it costs him his family? This episode also features a deeply unsettling realization for Bass. The more he investigates Esau Pierce, the more he learns about the scale of Esau's operation. Esau isn't just a killer. He's built an entire empire on the backs of black men he's claimed to arrest, but actually enslaved. And because Esau is a Texas Ranger, an official lawman, nobody questions him. He's protected by the very system Bass believes in. Episode 8, The Final Showdown. The series finale, Episode 8, is titled Part 8, and it's one of the most intense finales I've seen in recent television. Bass, Billy, and Cheryl Lynn travel to Fort Worth, Texas to confront Esau Pierce once and for all. They kidnap one of Esau's associates, torture him for information, and learn the location of Esau's compound. Before they go in, Cheryl kills the associate, which Bass strongly opposes. This creates a rift. Cheryl tells Bass that they're waltzing with the devil, and that if Bass wants to take down a monster like Esau, he needs to be willing to cross lines. Bass refuses. He's still a lawman. He still believes in bringing criminals in alive. Bass arrives at Esau's massive estate in Glen Rose, Texas. He's ordered to leave his weapons at the gate. This is Esau's territory, and even a federal marshal has to follow the rules. Bass walks in unarmed, and what he finds is horrifying. Esau's house is filled with dinosaur bones and fossils. Esau even has a massive dinosaur skull in his foyer. He tells Bass that he feels a kinship with these ancient monsters, creatures that once ruled the earth but are now extinct. It's deeply unsettling. Esau invites Bass to dinner and makes him a steak. It's the worst steak Bass has ever tasted, and the implication is horrifying. Bass might be eating human meat. Then Esau takes Bass outside to show him his operation. Jackson Cole, the man Bass turned over to Esau, is alive, but he's chained up and tortured. And he's not alone. Dozens of black men are working the fields as slaves. Esau explains his system. He arrests black outlaws, but instead of turning them in, he claims they died trying to escape. He keeps their boots as proof and collects the bounty. The men are declared dead, so nobody looks for them, and Esau forces them to work on his property. It's slavery under a different name, and it's completely protected by the law. Esau tells Bass that he's going to become part of the operation. He orders Bass to unlock Jackson's chains, and when Bass does, Esau's men surround him with guns. Esau tells Bass it's time for him to return to being a slave. But Bass calmly removes his hat, which is the signal. Billy and Cheryl have been watching from the woods. Gunfire erupts. Bass fights off Esau's guards with Jackson's help, who strangles one of the attackers with a chain. A massive shootout ensues in the woods. Cheryl gets caught in a bear trap, and in one of the most heartbreaking moments of the series, he shoots himself rather than be captured. Before he dies, he gives his deputy badge to Billy, apologizing for all the racist things he said to him throughout their time together. Esau escapes on Bass's horse, Pistol, but Bass tracks him down. The final confrontation happens in the wilderness. Esau admits that Bass has outmatched him, but he's not sorry for what he's done. Bass shoots him dead. No arrest, no trial, just frontier justice. Bass returns to Esau's compound, frees all the enslaved men, and gives them the money from Esau's safe. He tells Jackson Cole to lead the men to Kansas, where they can start new lives. Jackson tells Bass, "No one will ever know, but you made history today, Deputy Reeves." Bass also finds a diamond in Esau's safe and gives it to Billy, telling him to use it to marry Caliste, the woman he fell for back in Chakotah. Billy tries to give Cheryl's badge to Bass, but Bass refuses. He tells Billy to keep it and says he'll tell Judge Parker that Billy earned it. The final scene is Bass returning home to his family. He embraces Jenny and tells her, "Every part of me is home forever." The implication is that Bass is done. He's hanging up his badge. The weight of being a lawman in a broken system has finally crushed him. As Jenny plays the piano, Bass reflects on his journey through a series of flashbacks, and for the first time in the entire series, he smiles. The real Bass Reeves. So how much of this is true? Well, the broad strokes are incredibly accurate. Bass Reeves really did escape from slavery during the Civil War. He really did learn Native American languages and survive in Indian Territory. In 1875, he really was commissioned as a Deputy U.S. Marshal by Judge Isaac Parker, and he worked in that role for 32 years. His arrest record is absolutely insane. Over 3,000 felons arrested. He killed 14 outlaws in the line of duty, not 20, not 50, but 14, because Bass Reeves preferred to bring criminals in alive. That was his whole thing. He was never wounded, despite being shot at countless times. His hat was shot off. His belt was shot off. But Bass himself never hit. He arrested his own son, Benjamin "Benny" Reeves for murdering his wife in 1902. Imagine the moral strength that took. He also arrested the minister who baptized him for selling illegal alcohol. Bass didn't play favorites. The law was the law. Now the Mr. Sundown storyline and Esau Pierce, those are fictional. Bass Reeves faced many real villains, outlaws like Bob Dozier, Belle Starr, and Tom Story, but there's no historical record of a cannibalistic slave catcher named Mr. Sundown or a Texas Ranger named Esau Pierce. The show created that storyline to give Bass a clear antagonist and to explore the moral complexities of being a black lawman in a racist system. And here's something wild. Bass Reeves is widely believed to have inspired the Lone Ranger. The famous masked hero who rides a white horse, has a Native American companion, and fights for justice in the Old West? That's basically Bass Reeves. There's no definitive proof, but historian Art T. Burton has stated that Bass Reeves is the closest real person to resemble the fictional Lone Ranger. The timing lines up. The Lone Ranger radio show debuted in 1933 in Detroit, which is where many of the criminals Bass arrested were sent to the House of Corrections. It's not a stretch to think that the writers knew about Bass Reeves and used him as inspiration. After retiring from federal service in 1907, Bass became a police officer in Muskogee, Oklahoma, the only black patrolman on the force. He worked until he was physically unable, and he died on January 12, 1910, of Bright's disease, which is now known as nephritis, a kidney condition. He was 71 years old. Final thoughts. Lawmen Bass Reeves is an 8-episode masterclass in storytelling. David Oyelowo delivers one of the best performances of his career, bringing depth, humanity, and quiet strength to a character who could have easily been one-dimensional. The supporting cast is phenomenal. Dennis Quaid, Barry Pepper, Lauren E. Banks, Forrest Goodluck, everyone brings their A-game. Is it perfect? No. The pacing is slow at times, especially in the first 2 episodes. The time jumps can be jarring. We see Bass and his family age rapidly, sometimes within a single episode. And the Mr. Sundown storyline, while compelling, does veer into horror territory in a way that might alienate viewers expecting a more grounded Western. But despite those flaws, this show is important. Bass Reeves' story has been forgotten for way too long, and this series finally gives him the recognition he deserves. It's not just a Western. It's a meditation on justice, morality, and what it means to believe in a system that doesn't believe in you. The show was originally intended to become an anthology series, with future seasons focusing on other legendary lawmen in American history. Creator Chad Feehan confirmed that if renewed, the show would shift away from Bass Reeves and explore other historical figures. As of now, there's been no official announcement of a second season, but given the critical acclaim and the wealth of stories still to tell, there's hope. And that's the complete story of Lawmen Bass Reeves. If you made it this far, you're an absolute legend. Drop a comment below and let me know. Did you watch the series? What did you think of the Mr. Sundown storyline? And did you know about Bass Reeves before this show aired? Seriously, I want to hear your thoughts. If you enjoyed this deep dive, please hit that like button. It genuinely makes a massive difference for the channel. And if you haven't already, subscribe and turn on notifications because we're doing more complete series breakdowns just like this one. We've got Tulsa King, True Detective, Yellowstone, and so many more shows lined up, you don't want to miss them. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.